Did you get a thing that it's recording?
The little icons in the top, yeah.
Okay, great. Hopefully this works. Because you never know if everything's going to shit at any point. So anyway, and all of this is like pretty casual, you know. It's like a outreach, public facing outreach program kind of a thing where I'm trying to like, bridge the gap between the humanities and the sciences, you know.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Maybe introduction, what you study, please.
Do a full introduction.
Yeah, give your professional introduction.
So hello, my name is Leland. I'm a first year PhD student in oceanography, and I'm a chemical oceanographer. And so I study the interactions between microbes and sediments around hydrothermal vents. And so we're trying to understand like how much vents influence microbial production. And as organic matter is buried in sediment, do vents help microbes use more organic matter, or does the high temperature like decrease productivity and they use less? And this ties into like on a global time scale, if vents are like a net source or a net sink of carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. Yeah.
Always crazy thinking of you as a chemical oceanographer.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not a question that I told you that I would ask, but how do you feel about the Anthropocene?
The Anthropocene?
Yeah.
That sucks.
Do you believe in the concept?
And what do you mean by that?
You think it's measurable? Do you think it's like solid enough that we would use it in like academic discourse?
That's a good question. I think so. I do think yes. And like the most measurable thing that we can attribute to is carbon dioxide measurements in the ocean, in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what defines the Anthropocene is, like, correct me if I'm wrong, and like it's where humans have an impact on the world and on the environment and are changing it unequivocally. And I think that's true. I think we are having a very large, profound impact on the environment. And so I don't think it's wrong to call it the Anthropocene, because this is the era of human influence on the planet. And so I don't think it's like a good thing. Like, I don't think it's wrong to call it that, but yeah, it's not a good thing. I think we've done more destruction than good for this world so far. And I hope that changes.
When do you think the Anthropocene started? Like, when do you believe it started?
I don't think I've ever thought of that. If we go by the definition of when humans started having an impact on the planet, I would say like around the Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
And like, even though humans have been around for a lot longer and have, altered the environment, through civilization, agriculture, until the Industrial Revolution, it was on a lot smaller scale, I think, a lot less harmful and impactful to the environment. So I'd say that's when it really kicked off.
I only bring this up because we've been having so many discussions like through like months at this point about the Anthropocene and how the humanities people use it. And
what are they?
Okay, so this is real fun. This has been eye-opening for me. Yeah. But some argue that the concept of the Anthropocene places too much blame like on the indigenous populations and not the Western world, because we have not had the same impact on this Anthropocene. And this just feels like placing the same burden on every human's shoulder when because of it has not been the same,
I agree with that, yeah.
So to make this a human issue in and of itself isn't a problem, they argue, some argue.
but humans are still like the cause of it. And yeah, I totally agree that it wasn't like indigenous cultures, and it's not every single human's decision to take part, but it is still humanity as a whole.
Yeah, but there's always this like trend, one would say, in just like lessening the burden of the uber rich, all that shit. Like corporations never take blame, all that thing.
Yeah.
So there's that kind of argument to it. And then there was this other argument where, it's not the Industrial Revolution, it's more like when like Europe invaded the Americas and just like started colonizing. Apparently they see a dip in carbon when they started killing off all these indigenous people, which is buck wild. Yeah, it went from like 51 million people apparently to 6 million in the Americas right after like 1610s.
Yeah.
Not my history, didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't think I heard that one either.
That was brought up today. It was wild. So yeah, and that and the like plantation I'm seeing, like how plantations as a concept has changed the world and had an impact.
Yeah.
I don't know. None of this I feel like has hard geological backing to it. So
yeah, but I think it's hard to like put a distinction on it, because all of the past eras we have defined so far have been like in geologic history, and a lot of time is condensed into like millions of years, know. And so like that's the time scale we're considering these like different eras on. But when it's modern history and we have such fine detailed records of modern, like what's actually happening, I think like it's a lot harder to place a.
Yeah, so I like fundamentally disagree on like people using the Anthropocene as a concept. Like we don't have enough data.
I don't think we have enough data.
There's not enough like physical sediment that has accumulated on the ground at the moment, I feel like, since the dawn of human like impact, Like there's only so much.
Yeah. But who's to say that like we need sediment to know that?
Geological epochs, I think people call it. I don't know. I learned all this from a professor who was very intent on having his definition of the Anthropocene become the acknowledged canon of the Anthropocene. I'm like, dude, you're just trying to further your career, not like contribute anything to the world,
Yeah.
And like, I'm just like so skeptical of anyone trying to force their own perspective on it. And just like, maybe course them more. I don't know. Even people who are doing it are just like not coming to a consensus on anything.
Oh, I mean, I disagree, but like, what do you mean?
There's like you said, you believe that it's the beginning of the Industrial Revolution when the thing started, but other people say, atomic bombs. Some people say plastics. There's just so many that you can look at and say, human impact right there, provable. So I just feel like it's so vague of a concept for us to use. Thoughts?
Yeah, I get that. Like, I think it's harder to like pin down a single point and say like this is the start when there's so many different things that have made an impact and different types of an impact. And I remember like Matt Oliver talked about I forget what reaction it is, but making ammonia synthetically for agriculture had a very significant impact.
Mhm.
And I don't remember where that was in history. um,
I think the Second World War. No,
I,
the First World War. I think.
I was gonna say, I think it comes around there.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I think there might be some discrepancy on when you actually put it, like the date. But like I said, like in geologic history, we place eras in terms of like hundreds of thousands of years. So why do we need like a specific year or date when we know we're having an impact? Even if like there's discrepancy on which has caused the most impact, we still are causing an impact.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know.
The humanities argument to that is that real people are being impacted by this climate change. And it's like about decolonizing the narrative.
Totally. I mean,
I'm just spitting out very hot topic words right now.
Yeah. I mean, like that's a total like intersectional environmentalism is a huge thing. And like there are certain groups of people who are way disproportionately affected by climate change.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't, and you're right, we like shouldn't be placing blame on them or like on indigenous cultures. But yeah.
I don't know. The conversation is just always so focused on the West, or as other people call it, the North now. Okay, dude, people call it the North and the South.
Huh.
And it's been blowing my mind. It's not a geographic term. It's more that I think it's more economical. Couldn't tell you more.
Hey, that's weird. I never heard that one yet.
Me neither. But like all my readings refer to it now, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, like, I get the part of like the West, traditional West, because it is like colonizers who want to control the environment and be the master of the environment and not live alongside and within the environment.
Very Christian narrative right there. Become the master.
Yeah.
Just extract the resources from the God-given environment as your God-given right. Hell yeah.
I see so. I mean, and like, I was talking to one of my like family friends who's a fisherman, and he like goes up to Alaska every year to fish. And I was talking about like overfishing and like the decline of fish stocks, and he's like, "Oh well, why do we need to care? Like, this is my right, and God's gonna come get us anyways. So why does it matter if we take all the fish?"
Oh.
And I was like, "Damn, like okay." It was like, "But what about your like kids and your grandchildren? Like, they're not gonna have an income in the same industry." It's like, "Oh well, that's not my problem. That's their problem."
True, but not fair.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very just one track minded, like very selfish.
Upsetting.
Yeah.
I don't know. All these talks that I've been recording turn out this way, like a depressive note. And I don't know how to change that.
I don't know. I feel like all through class, like whenever we get onto the topic of climate change and like human impact, it's always like a very depressing lecture or class discussion.
Yeah. But I still feel like we don't do it enough. Like the fact that we can go through all our courses and not take a single humanities course, truly upsetting.
I think that's more of like an academic like institution thing than a
Yeah, it's in the institution. Everything's in the institution. It's all a systemic issue, Leland.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
We got a union.
What do you think we're not talking enough about, though? What do you think we're not talking enough about?
The real human impact that we have, like, why are we doing the research? I feel like as we write our papers, it's more like the economic benefits, the benefits to, you know, whatever, what do you call it, industry that we're contributing to, especially me, like all of our lab is like, you know, fisheries and like management, like policy kind of stuff, but we don't put faces or names to any of the people that we're actually impacting. And we're very much trained to like take the emotion out of the science. Whereas we as people for sure should be thinking about those and like having that drive it instead of, you know, whatever grant that we're on, you know. Like I get paid by the DoD. DoD don't care about anything. Off the record, but
it's recorded, it's on the record.
well, the DoD people are not gonna see this. They don't care about the people.
It's a humanities class, they won't see it. And but like I agree with that, like scientists are trained to take the emotion out of it. But yeah, it's the emotion that gets people fired up about these issues.
Yeah, and like on an individual level, we're all like, yeah, the environment, the people, and like, I feel like at heart we're all like fucking anarchists and activists. But on a once we go to like a conference, it's not the same, you know. We're all like, no, professionalism looks like this instead of like caring for the people. And I feel like that's a little upsetting.
So what do you think about like individual action versus the need for a collective?
There's only so much an individual can do, I feel like, as is always the case. But then again, there's this air of, I don't know, hopelessness, I would call it, when you're acting on an individual scale. And like, going back to funding, like getting funded by something basically means you sign a contract and you do whatever work they want you to do. And I feel like I can't change that. Like I'm contractually obligated to do whatever they want me to do, and I am just like helpless over here doing my research. I don't know. How are you funded? What's your funding source?
Mine's an NSF grant.
Okay, taxpayer money, yeah.
Yes.
Even that, like, I don't know. What benefit does all that have? Like,
taxpayer funding or like my research?
To the taxpayers. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's the like furthering our understanding of the earth.
And
its very
highbrow, yes.
Is very nebulous. I feel like that's what research is for. And I don't think I can say that my individual research has like is very impactful on society. I don't think it is.
You never know.
Huh?
You never know.
You never know. But like I don't think I know my research won't like impact like the thought of climate change or how we treat climate change today. So it just makes me, or I want to look for other opportunities to get more involved outside of my research because I know my research isn't directly involved. And there's a lot more to do than just research.
Yeah, and I feel like it's difficult to find time while doing your research to do any activism work because like all of it takes so much energy out of you and like physical time. I feel like that's a real barrier. I don't know.
I think so, yeah.
Also,
at the same time, you have to consider what it means to be like to be activist?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it going out and talking to people individually, or is it just volunteering for an organization or donating to a cause?
Mm-hmm.
That could be considered activism as well.
Always depressing. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think there is an answer either.
No, and that part also upsets me. Like, there's no real policy action being taken. And it's so hard to make any policy happen, you know?
Yeah, I think there is policy trying to get done, but it's that latter part of it's so hard for it to get passed
Mm-hmm.
because it is going to be taking money out of the top people's pockets. And that's
The military.
Yeah. And so that's the biggest drawback to why it's not getting passed.
Yeah.
Because like I forget what the exact is, but it's like the top 7 or 70 corporations make top 10 corporations. Top 10 corporations make 70% of the carbon emissions. The top, it's something like that.
Fact check. I mean, yeah, I believe it because like a lot of companies just like outsource their work now. So I would also assume that it's like very underreported.
So it's 100. The top 100 companies are responsible for 70% of greenhouse emissions.
In the world or in the States?
In the world.
Mm.
Yeah, so the top 100 corporations. But and so like that's why it's hard to not consider it a collective humanities issue, because even though it is a few corporations that cause the biggest issues, like there's so many people who are employed and benefit from those companies
Mm-hmm.
that society needs to divest from before we can really make a change.
Yeah, and they make it so enticing to go into those industries. The number of times I was enticed to go into like petroleum.
Oh yeah.
Upsetting.
Yeah.
You know, the devil's money. You gotta resist.
Yeah.
Anyway, going back to our original question that I had. How do you think the world will end? Because we read in class this one book about Canadian Indigenous people going through like a blackout and a white doomsday prepper coming into that society and just like fucking shit up, like cannibalism. You know, it was wild. It was fun. If you want to read it, The Land of the Crested Moon or something. I can give it to you. But how do you think the world will end?
That's a good question. I think there's like, I was kind of thinking about it earlier. I was driving to my test and doing this. And I think there's kind of like, well, I think there's 2 different meanings for what it is for the world to end.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of different ways for it to get there. And so the first, I think, is like, the first I think is like a societal death and like a societal end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like humans' differences will eventually cause enough tension for more like war and strife. And I think society will eventually just collapse and break down. And if that's going to either like destroy the world or just be an end of society as we know it, it'll be an end of the world. But then I think another like end of the world scenario is like the environmental death of the world. And like if we're not able to curb all of our like emissions, for example, and like keep causing harm to the planet, there's just going to be irreparable damage to many ecosystems. And I think a lot of organisms will die, and that will be like the death of the world because they are the Earth's inhabitants. But I also think at the same time, like humans won't die in that scenario, because even though most of like the ecosystem will die, humans are capable enough to work around it and like isolate ourselves from the environment.
Either way, you see humans surviving after the apocalypse.
Well, I think if we just like start wars and just start attacking each other, I think there'll be like a few survivors, but not a lot. And then in the like ecological death of the world, I don't like. I think humans will be able to develop a different type of technology to be able to outlast it and just like have a completely artificial life.
Do you think technology will drive the future if they do survive in that ecological death scenario? I was like, I don't know. It's just been a very contentious topic. Technology and the future.
And I don't know, because I think tech can be used for good.
And
like,
for sure.
We can use a lot of tech to like help curb emissions and reduce our harm. But at the same time, if we aren't able to do that, tech's just going to evolve in a different way. And so, yes, it would just drive human survival.
I simply do not know.
No.
This is just a wild topic to me. I don't know. I also just kind of believe in like one day the glaciers will just simply come forward. You know, like in The Day After Tomorrow.
Oh yeah. I mean, and yeah, like they're just gonna melt. What's gonna happen?
You know, stratification becomes more extreme, nothing happens, and it all freezes over. I don't know. How soon do you think that's gonna happen? Like a war seems awfully close.
I don't know. Considering what's happening in Ukraine right now, I don't really know. I don't want to jinx the entire world.
Knock on wood.
I don't know. I think it'll be like a while if we ever get to that stage. Just because there is such a collective I don't know the word, just most of the population wants peace and wants to not go to war and like start bombing each other, you know. So I don't know if it'll ever get there. And I don't know if I could put a time on it. I don't know.
Give your best guess.
For war, I don't know. It could be within like the next century.
Okay, very hopeful. Okay.
Next 100 years. Yeah, I don't know.
Rural ecology. Like I know nothing about ecology. Like I very much drive myself down a well of my specific field of study. So what do you think is gonna happen? How long do you give corals?
The corals? Not very long. I think I remember hearing like by 2050, they're gonna be in real trouble.
50? They're all gone?
I don't quote me on that, but I feel like that's something I've heard.
Jesus Christ.
But sooner than we think it is. It's gonna happen pretty fast.
You think we're past the tipping point of ecological downfall? And we're just facing the inevitable?
The optimist in me says no, but the pacifist says yes. The pessimist, not pacifist. Pessimist says yes. Because I remember hearing like, forget when it was, but it's like we're already. I forget what it is. It's like our. I forget what it was called, but it's like we're burning more carbon emissions than we're storing.
Oh.
It's like we're like past the point for carbon emissions. it's like on like that side, I think we are past the tipping point. But I also think that like humans are capable enough to be able to reverse some of that. And like I don't think that like geoengineering is the way to go, and like
No.
ocean sequestration, I don't think that's the way to go. But I think we will be capable of kind of buffering some effects. And we'll be able to maybe not fully reverse it, but at least slow it or stop it. So I don't think we'll ever get back to where we were. So by that measure, we're past the tipping point.
Interesting. Do you think it's more ideal to go back to where we were before the industrial age? What do you consider the ideal end point of like conservation?
I think the pre-industrial like state of the earth is too idealistic to go back to. There's no way that's just going to happen. So I think the goal would be to create like oh, my internet's unstable.
Oh, I've been hearing you though. Your camera just stopped a little.
Hello.
Hello? Restart the recording. Please continue.
Okay. So I think the goal for conservation is to just mediate our effects, and I think allow the natural progression of ecosystems, because organisms do adapt, organisms do evolve. And I think the goal would be to allow time for that to happen, and time for them to naturally progress into the new era, and not just destroy everything.
Interesting. Allowing them time. What a concept. Huh.
Yeah. Because like we're never going to get back to like, if pre-industrial is like the ideal, if like pre-colonization is the ideal, we're never going to get back to that.
No.
And so what the new ideal is depends on how quickly we kill things off, or how quickly we can allow them to change and survive and thrive, you know?
Yeah. Interesting. So curb the rate, let things go on, and let things die out too.
I think so. Because like there will be some things that go extinct that we're not going to be able to recover.
Yeah.
Some organisms. But there's still a lot that will be able to grow and fill those niche again. And we might not be able to see that in like my lifetime, but
for sure not.
Generations. Yeah.
Well, I doubt it.
No.
Unless some hardcore geological geotechnical engineering goes into it.
Yeah.
But I don't want. Personally, no thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. Any other comments, thoughts, questions on the material that I brought up?
I don't think so.
No? Great talk. I just love talking about like, I don't know, emotional shit. Okay, let me stop.
It's good. It's good to talk about, raise awareness.
Yeah.